Welcome to LSC. It's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me the Vice President and Coach of the Peninsula Pilots, Hank Morgan. Hank, welcome.
Great to be here, Bob.
Oh, man, this is a coup for me.
No, not at all. You've got a lot of stars that you've been through this series, and I'm way down on that totem pole. Very happy to be here.
Well, we wanted to go back when you first started playing ball. And you always, baseball was that always your main love?
Yeah, yes, sir. It was, and I think I was. Some people have said it's a little cliche, but when you're a young kid, you spend the first several months to a year learning how to grip a baseball, and then the rest of your life, the baseball kind of grips you. And that kind of is my story. I definitely love the game.
Well, and then you started off playing with, and then went to Phoebus and all. Tell me a little bit about that. Do you remember some of your coaches?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I grew up in the With area of Hampton, and I played at the Hampton With Little League. Started there, I guess, when I played YMCA T-ball, I guess, over on Armstead.
Right.
And then as a 7-year-old started the B League, which I guess is now called something else, but at Hampton With. And Rosser Mitchell, the field's now named after him behind the old With Elementary School, was my coach in the B League, and my father was my coach in the A League, and I was definitely up there as one of the best coaches I've ever had. He was just a really unique man, and I had great experiences. And then Pat Painter over at the Phoebus Little League, right. As a 13-year-old. He took a group of us with Andy Lee and Edward Kerr and myself and Jay Wall, and we could go on, a lot of kick-tan kids. And,
right.
And we went, all the way to the state semifinals with Painter, and won the District 7 championship. So I have great memories of the Phoebus Little League.
Well, had some good success.
Carter Catlett's another coach that I had
right.
over there, you may know, who played,
right.
I believe, at Hampton High School.
Right. Now, what position would you always play the same position? Always infield? Was that, or were you a pitcher? Because everybody seemed to pitch when you're little.
Look how short I am, man. I'm a pitcher. I played everywhere. I learned at an early age that it was important to add versatility to your coaches,
okay.
So that my main goal was to get in there and get 4 or 5 at bats. So I play wherever defensively, but I guess most of my time was spent at shortstop.
Right.
And I caught a little bit coming along. I was probably truly a natural second baseman, but
okay.
I was always on teams where they needed me more at shortstop, and that's where I played.
Okay. You went through the Little League, and you went to Phoebus, and then you made a little transition there because your dad moved. Yep. So you grew up with all these kids on the peninsula, but you moved across the river.
Yeah, I was really close childhood friends with some guys that you guys here at the station have covered so well over the years. Some names that probably are very familiar with you. Jonathan Baker, the basketball
right.
Guy at Hampton that played with Curry, and a lot of great teams that came along that Coach Brower had over there, and Josh Lively in that crowd. We were really close friends. It was a circle of probably about 15 of us that were. So my parents moved to Isle of Wight County when I was in the 7th grade, and kind of forlorn. I lost some of my. It was a long drive to get to my friends, and
right.
That's tough.
And you couldn't drive.
And I couldn't drive. My sister could drive, but she wasn't willing.
Well, older siblings are like that.
Yeah.
But you played balls over on the side. You played at.
I believe. Let's see. That would have put me, I guess, around 13. So yeah, I was playing Phoebus Little League, driving all the way there. But ended up having to enroll at a private school at Hampton Roads Academy, which is a great institution. I just read that 100% of their graduates are going to college, which is pretty phenomenal. But I'm a guy that I truly believe in the public school system. I don't know that I necessarily took that stance at that age, but right. Just innately, that's kind of how I felt.
Just didn't feel right.
I felt comfortable in public school, and I felt like I was going to get out of it what I was willing to put into it, and
right.
and I had a lot of great teachers in the public school system, and I loved my coaches and my friends. So yeah, I couldn't wait to get back.
So you did get back. You got over and got to play for Danny Mitchell.
Yes, sir.
Danny, I had Danny in here. Great interview. but you know, he calls all the pitches, which is unusual. To me, it was, because when I grew up playing ball, coach didn't call the pitches. Of course, we weren't sophisticated back then, as they are now. But how was it playing for Danny?
It was, you know, I think probably the most important thing, you know, to answer that question, could be a long answer, because you know, Danny's a complex man in a lot of ways, or Coach Mitchell, excuse me, Coach, I learned a lot. I got a lot of character from him. I mean, he taught me a little bit about hard work and life, and you know, he's a competitor.
Yes, he is.
He gets after it, and I think that really wore off on me more than anything else. Was he loves to compete, and so do I. I mean, and so I really liked Coach Mitchell in that regard. You got excited every time you put that uniform on. And then there's another thing too, with him. He's got a real pride about that school, and
he's got a real history with that school.
Absolutely,
4 generations.
Yeah, and it comes out in everything he does. I mean, he made you feel proud when you put that uniform on.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah, and you know, obviously there were some baseball things I picked up, you know, and certainly learned a lot from him. But I'd say probably the most important thing is the value of getting up every day and competing and getting after it.
Well, that's great. Well, you had 3 years with him, and then you made a move because you wanted to play Division I baseball.
Yeah, I actually had 4 years with Coach Mitchell. I was fortunate enough to make his team as a freshman at Hampton, and I was the designated bunter pretty much. But I loved it. I embraced the role. And then there's another thing that he taught. You know, sometimes if you embrace a role, you can earn a larger role. You know, with the team, which definitely happened in my case. And I appreciate that, and I use it today in my coaching. But yeah, and then I wanted to. Like we said at the beginning, I love the game. I wanted to keep playing, and I wanted to play at the highest possible level that I could play at. And I chose the Virginia Military Institute as my destination for baseball.
Being what they call them, cadets?
The cadets, yeah, it's a southern pronunciation.
Yeah, you're way down, but you're down on the bottom.
Oh yeah.
When you're a freshman, you take all what's going on.
Yes, sir. It's a wonderful institution. I think we spoke on the phone last week. I didn't realize, you know, exactly what I was getting into. You know, I knew I was going to play Division I baseball. I was excited about that. But I didn't know all the rest that went into the overall institution. And boy, you're right. Lower than the low. That rat year is very trying. And but sure, you know, there's a sense of pride when you get through it. And I think there's another thing my father and Coach Mitchell and some of my coaches and teachers taught me coming along was if I was able to compartmentalize things and treat it as a game. You know, I knew that there was a method to the madness.
Right.
And so therefore there's a little bit of gamesmanship to be employed.
Right.
You know, and therefore I did okay in that environment and got through the rat line and had some really wonderful experiences, you know, with not only in the school with, you know, roommates and classmates, but also on a baseball field. I got to face Tim Hudson, you know, who's, you know, won almost, I guess, 200 games now in the big leagues. And,
wow. Yeah.
You know, just a long list of guys that I felt, you know, privileged to share the field with.
Well, then you did what you're doing now, but you went to, was it Kentucky, and played with the, what they call Wood Bat League?
College Wooden Bat League is kind of the short terminology to describe all of the leagues that do what we do.
Right.
And I did. I went to Lexington, Kentucky, and stayed on the campus of UK. Actually took some classes there as well, and played about 55 games for the. Let's see, what were we called? The Lexington Dukes or something like that. But we, you know, play wooden bats. The concept is that it forces you to become a better hitter and a better player, and the scouts kind of want to see how you can swing it. Right.
Got married, so then you decided to finish your last 2 years at Christopher Newport.
Yes, sir. And there's a couple of Peninsula District, Hampton City schools. Connections to that story as well. I mean, first of all, my wife, the love of my life, she's a Bethel girl, you know, so you can relate there, obviously, and And really the main attraction for me at Christopher Newport at the time was Buddy Denton. He was there. You know, I came through playing high school baseball, competing against him.
Right.
And his great talent that he always had over there.
Always got good talent.
Yeah, and I had a lot of respect for him. I think Coach Denton knows how to treat people, and you know, he expressed an interest, and it was really kind of an easy decision from that point.
Right. So you graduated there, went to work for Nolan for a couple years, but that's not baseball, is it?
Yeah. It's
I mean,
fun.
it's different.
It's life. I mean, you have to survive. You have to get out and compete. You know, in whatever you're doing. But no, it wasn't as fun as baseball. I liked it. I had some fun in it, but not quite baseball.
Right.
No.
But then they got the opportunity to go to the Pilots.
Yes, sir.
General manager.
Yes, sir.
Jumped in with both feet. There was no decision. It was not a hard decision to make, was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a couple of reasons why it was so easy. I mean, obviously the natural reason of being able to get back into the game and,
right.
and to try to support my family through the game of baseball. But, you know, my father had been involved with the Peninsula Stadium Authority, and there were some issues with the ownership group of the Peninsula franchise, and he stepped up and got involved on that level. And there were some trust issues happening with the management team that he inherited from the previous ownership group. So, you know, not only was it an opportunity to get involved in the game again, but it was also an opportunity to try to help my father. He trusted that, you know, I was going to be an upfront guy and be honest, and you know, that meant a lot to me as well. So. Okay,
now you're general manager for a while, and now vice president and coach.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So now you're using all the stuff that you learned from all your coaches, going back to Little League, right up through Coach Mitchell and what you had at VMI and wherever, and develop your own philosophy.
Yes, sir.
But you took a little bit from everybody. Is that basically how it works?
Very accurate. I think that's a great description of kind of how it happens. It's an evolution, and my style, so to speak, is going to continue to evolve. I feel like that we as coaches and players today are stewards of the game. The game's been around for a long time. The game's going to be around for a long time after we're gone. And we've got to babysit it well. You know, we've got to treat it with respect, and we've got to go about how we play the game the right way. And, and what defines the right way, you know, comes from all those different experiences.
Tell me a little bit about Chris Fenwood.
Chris Fenwood is a guy that, you know, if you can make the leap that the Pilots have had success as a franchise, that a lot of that credit has to go to Finney, we call him, or his players call him Finn Diesel. But
Finn Diesel, okay.
Yeah. Chris Fenwood is a Hampton High School graduate. I played shortstop at Hampton High School. I want to say Sanzo may have been there then as the coach, but I'm not really sure who his coach was. And then he went on to VMI and played there as well. So there's a little bit of a connection there. We took the same path. From that point, he got into coaching immediately, and it was at Virginia Commonwealth University as a coach. It was at VMI as a coach, as a head coach. And then went to Auburn and has experience in the SEC, and then gets hired as the head coach at Western Kentucky University, the Hilltoppers. And he has built quite a little program out there in Bowling Green, Kentucky. In fact, the fellow that hired him for that job is Wood Seelig. Dr. Seelig's now the athletic director over at Old Dominion. So there's some local ties all around there. And Finney's been good, whether it was when he was at VCU, VMI, Auburn, or now at Western Kentucky, about really sending guys back to the area. He loves where he's from. He knows that his kids are going to get treated well by the community, and he knows that we're going to do our best to give them.
Tell us how you get to the players.
It's well, I get asked that question an awful lot.
Oh, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, and I love the interest. I think it is an interesting question. It's just difficult to answer in the sense that it never happens the same way twice. Now, some elements do, and that would be, we deal with a network of coaches that we have a personal relationship with.
Okay.
So what I'll do is, I've got fairly well established relationships with 15 to 20 schools around the country And we feel really strong about the institutions that they. I mean, we've got relationships with Georgia Tech and the University of Virginia, and now Virginia Tech as an emerging partner with our organization, and Western Kentucky and Old Dominion and William and Mary, and it would be even some Big East schools, Villanova and Georgetown. But that's kind of where we start the process in September, and because we trust those coaches. And we don't have the budget to allow us to get out and spread the country with, getting our own eyeballs on kids. We have to deal with people that we trust, and so that's where we start the process. Okay. And then every year we work a list of guys that have local connections because we want to have we want to have those guys be a part.
Well, it helps with the fan base too, I would imagine.
It does. It certainly does. We never wanted to put a local guy on the team for the sake of having a local guy on the team, and we felt like that would be it would just be almost obvious that the goal was only to sell tickets and not to help the team or to help the kid, and that's not ever what we wanted to do. But Bob, right now we've got an emerging talent pool that's coming off of the peninsula. For a long time we've dealt with the South Side. A lot of those schools over there have been very strong in baseball. But I looked at the 2011 Peninsula District high school season, and last year was kind of a build-up, and it's been starting to come for a while. But I looked at this past season, and we've got a lot to be proud of over here. There's a much deeper pool of players. And
well, you also have host families.
Yes, sir.
Which is, because I know Pat Patrick had him in here. He's been a host family forever, he said, just about ever since you've done this.
Ever since the beginning. Pat's one of those guys. He's solid. He's there for you. He's just a good man. And yeah, that's the hardest thing I do, I think, is host families. We've got 18, 19, 20-year-old young men coming from all over the country. No, we don't. We think we know a little bit about their personalities, but we don't know everything. And hey, open up your home to these guys and share your home with these guys. And there's only a certain type of person that'd be willing to jump off that diving board, so to speak. But we've been very fortunate. In fact, I'd say that it's one of the strongest selling points of our organization is the geography. Guys like coming close to the water and the beach. It's the network of host families that we've got. The word's gotten out that those experiences are all good, and kids talk when they get back to school. And the stadium and the fans and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your assistant coaches, because you've got some Peninsula connections there.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. We've got 4 coaches on our staff. 3 of the 4 are Peninsula District alumni, so to speak. Myself, at Hampton High School, and Wayne Gomes, who everybody kind of knows around here as a Phoebus High School guy, and then this year we added another pitching coach, Brett Wheeler, from Kickingham High School, and I played against that guy, and
So I'm trying to think, you got all the schools covered because you married somebody from from Bethel.
Yeah, we got them all.
So you got them all covered, right?
Yeah, she's at all the games too. And Brett was just a guy that, it's well documented, but he was just a guy that, as a player, even though I competed against him, you always had respect for him. You always appreciated the way that he went about his business, and I feel fortunate to have him. All
right, we want to wrap this thing up. Talk about the hometown feeling that comes from the Pilots. This is, to me, is just a great selling point.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think, I've kind of been a student of the history of that stadium. It was built in 1947 by Branch Rickey, and we've had 12, 14 different affiliated Major League franchises come through. And matter of fact, when we throw our first pitch this year, we will become the longest tenured franchise ever to occupy the stadium, which is kind of interesting. But there was a little bit of difficulty when we first started in convincing the community that we were going to have staying power. That it wasn't going to be the next of the installment of
who's coming after you guys,
carpetbagger, fly-by-night type thing. And we're all from here. We have pride in the area. We have pride in the stadium. We grew up going to games out there. and fortunately, my father is dedicated to maintaining that stability. But I think the main deal there is what you just kind of hinted at, and that is, I've never seen an atmosphere quite exactly like the one that you have at the ballpark. It's kind of a Norman Rockwell throwback type of an experience, and I struggle to think about where else in our travels do you see a school teacher and a janitor and a lawyer and a judge and a construction worker and an architect, and all those people who may not speak to each other, may other than hello, may not spend a whole lot of time getting to know one another in a different environment. In that place, there's a common ground for 2 hours, and it's either the game or the food or whatever. But they sit and they interact and they mingle, and I think it's very special. I think it's unique. I think it's the best thing we've got going. I mean, we like baseball, but we think that's probably.
I appreciate you coming in.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Hank Morgan. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Until next time.